Most people know El Chapo. Some others who are bigger aficionados in the cartel stories know Sinaloa's co-leader El Mayo, but you've got to be really deep in to know that there's even a third co-leader of the cartel. Have you heard of El Güero Palma? If your answer is no, then it's probably because this was a drug lord who burned very bright in the underbelly of Mexico, but burned bright for a short period compared to his peers. This was a traumatized man, a Sinaloa cartel boss who was forced to live his worst nightmare when he received his wife's head by mail and saw his kids all die terribly. And I'm about to tell you a story. If there was ever a person you should take advice from on not joining the crime life, it's this man. El Güero Palma's rise. 63-year-old Hector Luis Palma Salazar, commonly known as El Güero Palma, who was born on April 29, 1960, is a notorious Mexican drug lord who gained infamy for his involvement in the drug trade and the founding of the Sinaloa Cartel, together with his fellow drug lords, Joaquin Guzman and Ismael Zambada Garcia. Since his birth in Noria de Abajo, Sinaloa, Mexico, Palma's life has been flawed by multiple criminal activities and violence. His criminal career began with him as a petty car thief and eventually a gunman. Over time, he expanded his operations to include illicit drug trafficking, solidifying the cartel's dominance in the drug trade. Since then, Palma's life basically revolved around his involvement in the illicit drug trade and his role in the creation of the infamous Sinaloa Cartel. Rising through the ranks, Palma eventually became a prominent figure within the cartel. He was especially known for his ruthlessness and was able to amass considerable power and wealth through drug trafficking, money laundering, and corrupting officials. Little did Palma anticipate the dangerous consequences that his entanglement in a hazardous way of life would ultimately bring upon his beloved family. On the seemingly tranquil day in the year 1978, a jolting revelation awaited him as he discovered, to his utter shock and dismay, the severed head of his dear wife presented as a gruesome trophy. This horrifying act was speculated as a retribution for Palma's unwitting involvement in concealing crucial information pertaining to a mysteriously vanished shipment, a matter that had direct implications for his rival cartel leader at the time. Here's how it all started. Hector Luis Palma Salazar was born into poverty in Sinaloa, Mexico, a region known for its historical ties to the drug trade. Little is known about his early life, but it was stated that he started out as a common car thief and would later come to work as a gunman for Miguel Angel Felix Gallardo, a Mexican drug lord and the founder of the Guadalajara Cartel. Evidently, Palma was drawn into a life of crime at a very young age, given that from the date of his birth to his first arrest in 1978, Palma was only 18. Palma's criminal journey with the cartel involved marijuana cultivation and smuggling of marijuana and cocaine to the United States, activities that would later escalate into more significant drug trafficking operations. As Palma gained experience and connections, he would eventually become co-leader of the cartel with El Lobito Redamosa Machado. Palma's further rise in the cartel can be traced back to the fallout that occurred within the Guadalajara Cartel after the murder of DEA agent Kiki Camarena in 1985. The Guadalajara Cartel, which had controlled almost all narcotics trafficking operations in Mexico during the 1980s, faced a major blow when Rafael Caro Quintero, one of its co-founders, was captured and convicted for the torture and murder of Camarena. Camarena, an undercover field agent, was suspected by the cartel of providing information to the DEA that led to the destruction of their 500-acre marijuana crop, Rancho Bufalo in Chihuahua, in November 1984. The authorities reportedly burned over 10,000 tons of marijuana, causing an estimated loss of $160 million. This event allegedly fueled the desire for revenge among Caro Quintero and other top members of the Guadalajara Cartel, leading to their actions against the DEA and Camarena. However, the murder of Kiki Camarena brought intense pressure from the U.S. government on Mexico to take down the major players involved in the incident. Many leaders of the Guadalajara Cartel were brought to justice during the subsequent 4-year law enforcement manhunt. Among those remaining was Miguel Angel Felix Gallardo, who decided to divide the drug trade he controlled to make it more efficient and less vulnerable to law enforcement scrutiny. In 1987, Felix Gallardo moved with his family to Guadalajara City and convened a meeting of the nation's top drug narcos in Acapulco. At this gathering, he designated territories or plazas for different drug lords to control and traffic drugs to the U.S. These territories included the Tijuana route for his nephews, the Arellano Felix brothers, the Ciudad Juarez route for the Carrillo Fuentes family, led by Amado Carrillo Fuentes, the Sonora Corridor for Miguel Caro Quintero, the Matamoros Corridor Corridor, which would become the Gulf Cartel for Juan Garcia Abrego, and the Pacific Coast operations, becoming the Sinaloa Cartel for Joaquin El Chapo, Guzman Loera, and Ismael Zambada Garcia. Hector Luis Palma Salazar was brought back into the fold after serving an 8-year sentence for drug trafficking charges in 1978. He established contact with Joaquin El Chapo Guzman and Ismael El Mayo Zambada Garcia of the Sinaloa Cartel, leading to the formation of an alliance between them. Felix Gallardo planned to continue overseeing national operations, but he would no longer control all the details of the business. His arrest on April 8, 1989, marked a significant shift in the power dynamics within the Mexican drug trade. The Sinaloa Cartel, now led by El Chapo and Ismael Zambada, became one of the dominant factions in the drug trafficking landscape, alongside the Tijuana faction, led by the Arellano Felix brothers. Palma and Rafael Enrique Clavel, a Venezuelan trafficker with ties to the drug trade and a personal romantic connection to Palma's sister Minerva Palma, also joined forces to create their own independent cartel. Just like Palma, Clavel was seeking a new path in the world of drug trafficking and cartels after having parted ways with his previous association. But this did not stop Clavel from eventually joining sides with the Tijuana cartel under two of the Arellano brothers, Benjamin and Raymond Arellano Felix. However, tensions arose within the drug cartel landscape, and fears of a potential coup prompted Javier Caro Payan, also known as El Doctor, one of the cartel leaders, to flee to Canada in a bid to safeguard his position. Eventually, Caro Payan faced arrest, and this development stirred anger among the Sinaloa cartel leaders, including Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, toward the Arellano Felix clan, as they perceived his escape as a sign of betrayal. In an attempt to address the escalating situation, Guzman sent one of his most trusted associates, Armando Lopez, also known as El Rayo, to negotiate with the Arellano Felix clan. However, the meeting did not end on amicable terms, and tensions between the splinter groups intensified. As rivalries escalated, the two factions, once aligned, found themselves in competition with each other. Palma faced accusations of betraying Felix Gallardo by reportedly withholding the proceeds from a lucrative drug shipment for personal gain. This betrayal fueled animosity within the criminal underworld and further fueled the tensions between the factions. It was during this chaotic period that Palma became entangled in one of the most notorious and gruesome vendettas to grip Mexico's criminal landscape. The escalating hostilities between the factions led to a violent and vengeful conflict, claiming numerous lives and engulfing the underworld in chaos. The internal conflicts, betrayal, and vendettas quickly fractured the alliances that once bound them together. Tragedy and vendetta. Clavel, sent by the Arellano Felix brothers, infiltrated Palma's family and seduced his wife, Guadalupe Lea Serrano. He then convinced her to withdraw a staggering sum of $7 million from one of Palma's bank accounts in San Diego, California. He then got her to leave her husband and move to the United States with her 2 children. Guadalupe did as was told, and on arriving at San Francisco, Clavel decapitated her and shipped her head back to Palma in a box through mail. This shocking act marked the first beheading in Mexico linked to the drug trade. The vendetta intensified further when, 2 weeks later, Clavel also took the lives of Palma's young children, Hector, aged 5, and Natalie, aged 4, by heartlessly throwing them off a bridge in Venezuela. In a quest for revenge, Palma responded by ordering his men to execute Clavel while he was in prison for the murder of the 2 children. While Clavel was successfully eliminated, the escalating violence did not end there. Palma had Clavel's entire family killed, and in 1991, Ramon, Palma's brother, killed another associate of the Sinaloa Cartel, Rigoberto Campos Salcido, who goes by El Rigo, triggering more significant conflicts with Guzman. Amidst this volatile and bloody feud, Guzman and Palma retaliated against the Arellano Felix brothers on September 3, 1992, in Iguala. During this ruthless attack, 9 people lost their lives, including lawyers and family members of Felix Gallardo, who was believed to have orchestrated the retaliation against Palma's family. The Mexican Attorney General formed a special unit to investigate the killings, but the investigation was abruptly halted after reports emerged that Guzman had bribed some of the top police officials in Mexico with a staggering $10 million, according to police records and former police officers' confessions. Another attempt was made on Guzman's life in November 1992. Gunmen of the Arellano Felix clan ambushed Guzman's vehicle in Guadalajara, firing AK-47 rifles at him. However, the drug lord miraculously escaped unharmed, fleeing Guadalajara and adopting a false identity to protect himself from future attacks. In a retaliatory strike, Guzman and Palma launched a devastating attack attack on the Arellano Felix brothers. On November 8, 1992, a large group of Sinaloa Cartel men, disguised as policemen, stormed the Christine discotheque in Puerto Vallarta, targeting Ramon, Francisco Javier Arellano Felix, and David Baron Corona. The shootout lasted for 8 intense minutes, with over 1,000 rounds fired by both sides. 6 people lost their lives, but the Arellano Felix brothers managed to escape through an air conditioning duct, evading capture. As tensions escalated, several more associates of Felix Gallardo were killed in December 1992. The animosity between the Sinaloa Cartel and the Arellano Felix clan resulted in a series of violent events across various states in Mexico. This bloody war of retribution continued for 6 more months, resulting in numerous casualties. However, neither Guzman nor Palma, the respective leaders of the two factions, were killed during this period. It's no surprise how far these men would go to establish dominance. Crossing cartel members is an incredibly dangerous and life-threatening endeavor, with potentially dire consequences. And since they wield immense power, their tendency to retaliate is swift and merciless. As in the case of Felix Games Garcia and his uncle Barnabas Games Castro in 2011, a video was released to the internet displaying the execution of both men. In the disturbing video, the two individuals were identified as Felix Games Garcia and Barnabas Games Castro. Barnabas, who is the uncle of Felix, provided his name as Paulino Gomez Garcia. The video also shows Felix confessing that they served as drug couriers and lookouts for the notorious Sinaloa Cartel. He explicitly stated that they worked directly under the alleged leader of the cartel, Joaquin El Chapo Guzman. During the harrowing footage, Barnabas, the uncle, had a somber message for those considering involvement in the dark world of drug cartels. In a broken voice, he warned them to think twice before betraying the cartel or engaging in any disloyal activities. He emphasized the severity of their situation, indicating that once entangled with these dangerous individuals, there is no turning back. With an air of desperation, he cautioned that the people associated with El Chapo are not to be trifled with, and their ruthless actions leave no room for error or betrayal. So you see, the cartel members are not people you'd want to have anything to do with, let alone cross them. Moving on, by mid-1993, the Arellano Felix clan dispatched their top gunman on a final mission to assassinate Guzman in Guadalajara. After failing to locate him, the hitmen returned to Baja California, where they were tipped off that Guzman was at the Guadalajara International Airport awaiting a flight to Puerto Vallarta. Around 20 gunmen from the Tijuana cartel descended on the airport parking lot, unleashing a barrage of gunfire at 4:10 p.m., targeting a white Mercury Grand Marquis believed to be hiding Guzman. Tragically, inside the vehicle was not Guzman, but the Cardinal and Archbishop of Guadalajara, Juan Jesus Posadas Ocampo, who was killed in the crossfire from 14 gunshot wounds. 6 other individuals, including the Cardinal's chauffeur, also lost their lives in the chaotic shootout. Guzman managed to escape amidst the confusion and made his way to one of his safe houses in Bugambilias, a neighborhood approximately 20 minutes away from the airport. Later, Palma constructed a lavish pantheon located in a cemetery in Culiacan, designated as a final resting place for his wife and children. This grand tomb served as a resting place not only for his family members, but also for other relatives of members within the Sinaloa Cartel. On June 23, 1995, a momentous event altered the course of Hector Luis Palma Salazar's life when the 12-seat Learjet he was piloting experienced a crash landing. The aircraft was en route from Ciudad Obregón, Sonora, to Guadalajara, Jalisco, where Palma intended to attend a wedding celebration. However, the journey took a disastrous turn as the jet was diverted, struggling to locate a suitable landing strip in time. Despite the harrowing circumstances, Palma miraculously survived the crash landing. Following the incident, Mexican military officers swiftly apprehended Palma, leading to his arrest. Notably, Palma had initially managed to evade capture by adopting a cunning disguise. He had traveled in full uniform, posing as a Federal Judicial Police (PJF) officer, complete with authentic identification and an armed entourage of PJF personnel. After his arrest, Palma faced legal consequences for his actions. He served a lengthy prison sentence of 19 years in the Atwater Federal Prison, an institution situated in the United States. Crime, vendetta, and love. It's understandable why Palma would resort to extreme measures to seek revenge. Losing the one precious part of his life that was untouched by crime must have been unbearable. Countless individuals who have experienced such heart-wrenching ordeals have also taken drastic actions to avenge their loved ones who fell victim to criminals. Some of these individuals include Miriam Rodriguez, Gary Plausch. Miriam Rodriguez's life took a harrowing turn when her 20-year-old daughter, Karen, was kidnapped in 2012 and murdered in 2014. Devastated and fueled by grief and anger, she decided decided to take matters into her own hands and seek justice for her daughter. With a pistol concealed in her purse, she embarked on a relentless and dangerous mission to hunt down the criminals responsible for Karen's abduction and murder. For 3 years, Miriam dedicated herself to tracking the perpetrators. She immersed herself in the criminal underworld, posing as different personas to gather information on her targets. Disguised as a pollster, a health worker, and an election official, she infiltrated their circles and gained crucial details about their lives and whereabouts. She built a meticulous investigation, diligently documenting everything she learned in her black computer bag. Miriam's dedication paid off as she methodically tracked down the members of the criminal crew one by one. Some were already behind bars due to her relentless pursuit, not the authorities' efforts. Her transformation was astonishing. She changed her appearance, cut her hair, and dyed it to avoid detection while gathering intelligence. She formed relationships with their unsuspecting relatives, gathering even the tiniest bits of information to strengthen her case. One particular target was a florist who had been involved in Karen's kidnapping. On a day like any other, she received a tip that he was selling flowers near the Texas border. Without hesitation, she rushed to find him. Disguised and armed, she searched the vendors on the bridge, determined to catch him. When she finally spotted him selling sunglasses instead of flowers, she approached too eagerly, and he recognized her. The young florist made a run for it, but Miriam, then 56 years old, pursued him relentlessly. She apprehended him on the bridge, holding him at gunpoint until the police arrived to arrest him. Over the course of 3 years, Miriam managed to capture almost every member of the crew responsible for her daughter's kidnapping. These criminals had tried to start new lives, hiding in plain sight as born-again Christians, taxi drivers, car salesmen, and babysitters. But Miriam was unyielding in her pursuit of justice, undeterred by the dangers she faced. Her relentless campaign against organized crime made her famous, but it also made her a target. Miriam knew the cartel might retaliate, so she asked the government for armed guards for protection. Yet even with these precautions, the criminals struck on Mother's Day in 2017. She was shot and killed in front of her home, her face down on the street, her hand still clutching her purse, and the pistol she had carried as a shield in her fight for justice. Miriam Rodriguez's story is one of courage, determination, and tragedy. Her unwavering pursuit of justice for her daughter inspired many, but ultimately cost her life. She became a symbol of the struggle against organized crime in Mexico, challenging the notion that these criminals were untouchable. Her legacy lives on, reminding us of the immense sacrifices made by people like Palma while seeking justice in a world where power and corruption are not punished enough for their crimes. In Gary Plosh's case, on March 16, 1984, a tragic and shocking event unfolded at Baton Rouge Metropolitan Airport, Louisiana. Jeffrey Doucet, the karate instructor who was accused of kidnapping and sexually abusing 6-year-old Jody Plosh, was being flown back to Louisiana to face trial. As he was escorted through the airport by police officers, Gary Plosh, Jody's father, was waiting for him, hidden behind a baseball cap and sunglasses to avoid recognition. A news crew from WBRZ-TV had been tipped off about Doucet's arrival, and they set up their cameras to capture the scene. Plosh, on the other hand, was waiting near a bank of payphones, casually talking to his best friend on the phone. As Doucet passed the news crew, he walked right past Plosh, who then pulled out a handgun and shot Doucet at point-blank range on the right side of his head. The shocking incident was caught on tape by the news crew. Doucet fell to the floor, bleeding from a severe head wound, while Plosh calmly placed the phone receiver down and surrendered to the officers, who immediately restrained him. The police officers were left bewildered. They asked Plosh, "Gary, why? Why Gary?" The brutal act left Doucet in a coma, and he succumbed to his injuries the following day. The aftermath of the shooting led to legal proceedings and intense media coverage. Plosh was initially charged with second-degree murder, but his defense argued that he had been driven to a temporary psychotic state after learning about the abuse his son had suffered at the hands of Doucet. Psychiatric reports supported Plosh's case, claiming he could not differentiate between right and wrong at the time of the shooting. Ultimately, Plosh agreed to a plea bargain and pleaded no contest to manslaughter. He was sentenced to a suspended 7-year sentence, 5 years of probation, and 300 hours of community service. He completed his community service in 1989. The video footage of the shooting garnered significant attention and has been featured in various television programs and documentaries, including the controversial shockumentary Traces of Death 2 and the Michael Moore-directed documentary Bowling for Columbine. It has also been widely circulated on YouTube, where it has received over 20 million views. In a later interview at the age of 67, Plosh boldly stated that he did not regret killing Doucet and would do it again if given the chance. The incident continues to generate debate and intrigue as people try to understand the motivations and emotions that led to such a drastic act of revenge, but it all boils down to love for his family and the urge to avenge them, just like Hector Luis Palma avenged his. Apart from that, there's a sense of fulfillment in knowing that after seeking justice, the beloved one who was wronged can finally find peace and rest. Sinaloa Cartel and Everything After. The Sinaloa Cartel, formed in 1987, was a result of the collaboration between Palma, Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, and Ismael El Mayo Zambada. With Palma's strategic acumen and merciless strategies, the cartel quickly established a far-reaching network, smuggling drugs from Mexico into the United States and beyond. Palma's criminal activities extended beyond the drug trade. He was also involved in money laundering and corruption, further bolstering the cartel's influence. It was widely regarded by the United States intelligence community as the largest and most powerful drug trafficking organization globally, surpassing even the infamous Medellin Cartel of Colombia during its peak. According to reports from the National Drug Intelligence Center and other U.S. sources, the Sinaloa Cartel's primary activities revolve around the distribution of cocaine, heroin, methamphetamine, fentanyl, cannabis, and MDMA. As of 2023, the Sinaloa Cartel continues to maintain its position as Mexico's second most dominant drug cartel. The Sinaloa Cartel's operations extended beyond drug trafficking. They diversified into other illegal activities, such as weapons smuggling, further contributing to the instability in the region. Palma's criminal exploits and the cartel's violent tactics attracted the attention of law enforcement agencies in both Mexico and the United States. With immense significance in the global drug trade, it has played a dominant role in smuggling drugs, mainly cocaine, heroin, and methamphetamine, into the United States and other countries. Its extensive geographical reach extends not only across Mexico, but also into the Americas, Europe, and Asia. Operating through a vast network of criminal associates, the cartel's influence is pervasive, controlling crucial drug corridors and maintaining a reputation for drug violence and intimidation. In the 1980s, Miguel Angel Felix Gallardo, also known as El Padrino, which is Spanish for the Godfather, rose to power within the Guadalajara cartel, which was one of Mexico's dominant drug trafficking organizations then. In the late 1980s, the Guadalajara cartel faced internal conflicts and external pressure from law enforcement. This led to its splintering into smaller factions, with one of the most powerful and influential factions, then called Plazas, being led by Joaquin El Chapo Guzman and Ismael El Mayo Zambada. This faction eventually evolved into the Sinaloa Cartel. The Sinaloa Cartel's organizational structure differs from many of its rivals, relying on a horizontal system rather than a top-down hierarchy. This decentralized approach has contributed to its international success and ability to survive attacks from rival gangs. Joaquin El Chapo Guzman and Ismael El Mayo Zambada Garcia are prominent leaders within the cartel, but Guzman had to take over after the arrest of Hector Luis Palma Salazar. The cartel's power structure allows for efficient coordination of drug shipments and operations, and with the different factions, the entire organization will definitely not go down at once. The criminal syndicate, as earlier mentioned, is involved in smuggling and distributing cocaine, marijuana, methamphetamine, fentanyl, and heroin primarily into the United States. They have a widespread presence in Mexico, with major centers in various states. It also has a historical stronghold in the Golden Triangle, a major producer of opium and marijuana, and is known for using sophisticated methods, such as drug tunnels and trap cars, to transport drugs into the U.S. It has also expanded its operations into migrant smuggling in border regions. During the late 2000s and early 2010s, the Sinaloa Cartel and Gulf Cartel were considered allies. However, by 2021, their alliance had deteriorated, leading to conflicts in the state of Zacatecas. The Jalisco New Generation Cartel has now sided with the Gulf Cartel against the Sinaloa Cartel. The Sinaloa Cartel has also formed alliances with other gangs in their operating regions. Internationally, they are believed to have ties with various criminal organizations, including Crips, Cartel del Noreste, Carteles Unidos, La Familia Michoacana, and others. They have also collaborated with Chinese triads for precursor chemicals to produce synthetic drugs. Additionally, they reportedly have a presence in Colombia and have partnered with drug cartels like the Clan del Golfo. By 2005, the Beltran Leyva brothers had become dominant in drug trafficking along the Arizona border, formerly allied with the Sinaloa Cartel. Unfortunately, in 2006, the Sinaloa Cartel had eliminated competition along the 528 kilometers of the Arizona border, absorbing the Milenio, Jalisco, Sonora, and Colima cartels as branches. Money laundering was conducted globally, with HSBC allegedly involved. In 2008, the cartel reportedly split into warring factions, contributing to Mexico's drug violence. Vicente Zambada Niebla played a crucial role in coordinating drug shipments for the Sinaloa Cartel, using various means of transport. The cartel continued to dominate the Sonora-Arizona corridor, with major distribution hubs in Tucson, Phoenix, and Atlanta. On February 25, 2009, the U.S. government announced the arrest of 750 members of the Sinaloa Cartel in Operation Accelerator across the U.S. They also seized more than $59 million in cash, along with numerous vehicles, planes, and boats. In March 2009, the Mexican government deployed 1,000 federal police police officers, and 5,000 Mexican Army soldiers to restore order in Ciudad Juarez, which had experienced the highest number of casualties in the country. On August 20th, 2009, the DEA dismantled a major Mexican drug operation in Chicago, uncovering a distribution network operated by the Flores crew, led by twin brothers Margarito and Pedro Flores. The operation brought large quantities of cocaine to Chicago from Mexico and shipped millions of dollars south of the border, mainly obtained from the Sinaloa Cartel and sometimes from the Beltran-Leyva Cartel. On May 11, 2010, Alfonso Gutierrez Loera, Joaquin Guzman Loera's cousin, and 5 other drug traffickers were arrested after a shootout with federal police officers in Culiacan, Sinaloa. The authorities also seized 16 assault rifles, 3 grenades, 102 magazines, and 3,543 rounds of ammunition, along with the captured suspects. Despite the loss of partners in Mexico, the Sinaloa Cartel's drug smuggling activities from South America to the USA remain active. It has also expanded operations to Central and South America, including countries like Peru, Paraguay, and Argentina, and is actively diversifying its export markets beyond the U.S. to Latin American and European countries. In 2012, Newsweek reported on allegations from an anonymous former Sinaloa Cartel member turned informant and former DEA agents. They claimed that Joaquin Guzman's legal advisor, Humberto Loya Castro, had been a key informant for the DEA since 2005, providing vital information on rival cartels since the 1990s. This intel led to the downfall of the Tijuana Cartel and Arturo Beltran-Leyva's splinter group. Loya Castro's cooperation ensured immunity from prosecution and diverted the DEA's attention from the Sinaloa Cartel. The investigation confirmed the collaboration between top officials and the cartel. Leaked emails revealed Mexican officials' belief that the U.S. was protecting the Sinaloa Cartel while targeting its rivals to reduce violence. Additionally, BBC's Secrets of Mexico's Drug War exposed the ATF's Operation Fast and Furious, which allowed firearms to be sold to the cartel. Vicente Zambada Niebla, the former high-ranking Sinaloa Cartel member, claimed immunity and cooperation between the cartel and U.S. federal agents. However, the U.S. Justice Department cited national security to prevent Humberto Loya Castro from testifying in Zambada Niebla's trial. On December 19, 2013, Gonzalo El Macho Prieto Inzunza, believed to be one of Joaquin El Chapo Guzman's top cartel leaders, was killed in a gun battle with the Federal Police of Mexico in Puerto Penasco, Sonora. During the same month, in December 2013, 3 suspected cartel members were apprehended in Lipa, Batangas province in the Philippines, with 84 kilograms, 185 pounds of methamphetamine in their possession. In February 2014, El Chapo Guzman himself was arrested. His capture sparked a fight over the location of his trial, with calls for his extradition to the United States emerging soon after his arrest. Guzman faced federal indictment in various locations, including San Diego, New York, Texas, and other places. And finally, on July 11, 2015, El Chapo managed to escape from a maximum security prison, marking his second successful jailbreak from such a facility in 14 years. However, his freedom was short-lived, as on January 8, 2016, Guzman was arrested again during a raid at a home in the city of Los Mochis, located in his home state of Sinaloa. Despite Guzman's capture and subsequent escapes, Zambada assumed full leadership. Over time, power dynamics have shifted among factions, with Zambada maintaining ultimate control and mediating between competing interests, especially on January 5, 2023, when the Chapitas faction was believed to be led by Guzman's son, Ovidio. Meanwhile, Palma is currently serving time at the Altiplano prison, located near Mexico City. Ultimately, Palma's dealings within the drug trade and the alliances he formed proved to be a double-edged sword, granting him power and influence, but also entangling him in a dangerous and merciless world. Well, all interesting videos must come to an end, but there's more where that came from. Just click on one of the cards on the screen to enjoy more videos.